Hello everyone, my name is Kat. Thanks so much for joining for this gentle, restorative yoga practice to celebrate the harvest full moon in the sign of Pisces. As we transition into autumn, this is the time to reflect on the completion of the summer cycle. Just as the name of harvest suggests, let's appreciate the abundance we've experienced and the accomplishments we have achieved, as well as embracing the magic, introspection, and wisdom of the new season. The full moon in Pisces can also enhance the spiritual connection, emotion, and imagination. This dreamer sign can feel more powerful as we begin to bring the awareness inwards instead of towards external values. So in today's yoga practice, we'll be remaining calm, still, and grounded. We will be working with gentle heart openers to reflect our gratitude towards the summer season and the accomplishments, but also beginning the process of drawing the inwards to the more subtle. If you'd like to bring any complementary crystals like amethyst, rose quartz, or green aventurine to work with the sense of gratitude, this can really help to amplify that intention. Aromatherapy oils like lavender, rosemary, or rose oil can be really useful as well to assist in balancing this practice. You may want to bring along a couple of blocks and a bolster or some additional pillows for this practice if you have those. And then when you're ready, let's begin. Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me for this harvest moon yoga practice. As I mentioned, you might want props, so I've brought a bolster and a couple of blocks. If you don't have those, just bring pillows, books, really anything that you have that might support you in your practice. And if you don't have those, then don't worry about bringing them at all. So we're actually going to start today in a kneeling position, taking a nice shoulder stretch and just closing off those eyes, starting to connect to the breath. So breathing in and out through the nose through your practice, but I want you to find a natural rhythm, one that feels more calming, more grounding to you. And sometimes even the awareness or the simple act of bringing awareness to your breath can be enough for it to start slowing down. And so just notice whether it's deeper into the belly, higher into the chest, and how bringing awareness to it might influence how your breathing feels as we start to calm the nervous system, to take that more introspective practice, as we feel that sense of gratitude for the summer season that we've had, the joys and the abundance we've brought into our lives, but also at that same time starting to respect the cooling down and the calming of our practice. So starting with our shoulder stretch, we're actually going to reach the arms up overhead to begin with, and we can interlace index finger and thumb of your left hand around your right wrist, and we can take a little stretch over towards the left side, and you may find that your right ribs press slightly over towards the right side as you do this. Inhale back through center and then switch the cross of the wrists. Exhale over towards the right side, so you may find your left ribs find a bit more space here as you breathe. Inhale back through center, and then we're going to interlace those fingers. We're going to bring them through our chest and then push the palms away as we actually protract those scapula a little bit and bring the chin towards the collarbone. Bring those hands through center, then interlace them behind the back as we squeeze the shoulder blades and then lift the chin, lift the chest. So we're opening through all areas of the rib cage, all areas surrounding the heart, not just the front of the chest that we often think about when we open up through that heart space. And then bring yourself back through center. And we're going to take a little twist. So bring your right hand towards the outside of your left thigh. Bring your left fingertips behind you and just looking out over your left shoulder. Inhale back through center, then switching the hands, looking out over your right shoulder. Keep your left shoulder blade nice and soft, nice and relaxed. Inhale back through center, and then from here we're going to come into a modified camel. So if you have blocks or a bolster, they might be helpful, you might not need them. But from this kneeling position, we're going to bring our hands either behind us to the floor, to the blocks, or to the props. You could also sit on your blocks if that helps here. And then just lift those hips up, lift the chin up, a little bit of space on the front of the throat, but not so much so that you feel strained through the neck. And just take a passive opening through the front line of the body. So slightly deeper opening of the chest here, breathing in, breathing out, bring the hips towards the heels. And then from here, we're just going to move forwards into an embryo pose. So relaxing the head down or head to blocks, arms alongside the body. And just feel your shoulder blades opening, draping over your thighs. Find that lovely space in the back line of the body. And then softly roll up the spine. Just moving your props off to one side, we're going to move into a heart melting pose. Now, if you have a bolster, it might be beneficial for this posture. If you don't have one, don't worry, but you might want to take a little break at some point. So just coming into a high kneeling position with your hips over your knees, and you're going to bring your hands forwards just in front of your bolster, and you're going to walk the hands forward until your chest melts down towards the bolster. And then from there you can let your head relax down, and you might find it bringing your bolster back a little bit further underneath your ribs allows your head to melt down towards the floor a little bit more. If you notice any pinching in your shoulders, try to spiral the shoulders open a little bit more by bringing the creases of the elbows forward, the points of the elbows down. And if it still causes pinching, then just come to rest down with your forearms to the floor. You could always take a child's pose to take some of that weight out. And then very gently, we're going to begin to walk our hands back. And we're going to move into a Sphinx pose. So you might, again, want your bolster for this one. If you don't have it, don't worry. But we're actually going to lower down onto our bellies. But this time, we're going to have the bolster just underneath our arms. So the palms of the hands are forwards, and we're finding a slightly more active stretch. So it's like we're trying to press those ribs slightly into the bolster. Keep our shoulders relaxed. And depending on the height of your bolster, this may be a deeper stretch, and if it feels like a lot, if it feels like a very deep stretch, you can release the bolster and just drop down onto your forearms. Doing your best to keep your low body soft. So your legs are relaxed, maybe your heels even widen slightly to the side. As we feel the beautiful space opening around the chest. And even here we notice our breathing. We notice the depth of the breath, we notice where the breath is heading. Is it more in the front of the ribs, into the belly? Is it into the sides of the ribs or the backs of the ribs? And then you could stay here for another few breaths, or if you want to move into seal pose just for a couple of moments, you could bring your palms slightly wider so they're more like towards the outer edges of the mat, and just straighten your arms. So it's a little bit of activation through the arms, and you'll notice here that that connects to the ribs and brings your ribs a little bit higher. Try not to let your shoulders hunch up by your ears though. And then relax down, and then depending on if you have the bolster, you may just want to use one hand, two hands to roll it away. Just let it go out of the way, and then just make a little pillow with your hands, bringing your head down to your mat, just softening
Maybe rocking the hips gently from side to side. And then from here we're going to move into a half frog pose. So if you prefer, you could always bring the bolster underneath your torso. I'm going to do it with it flat to the floor, but this can feel like quite a nice addition. So keep your forehead resting to your hands, and then bring your right knee out so your right knee is in line with your right hip, and your right ankle is in line with your right knee. Now your right hip is probably going to lift up off the floor. That's okay. Don't force it down, but do your best to keep relatively even weight through both sides of the body. We now have the option to move this into a twist. So the first twist is very simple. All you're going to do is bring your right ear down towards your hands and look towards the left. So it's a slight twist through the cervical spine. If, and this is a big if, as long as you don't have any lower back injuries or shoulder injuries, there is the option to bring your right palm to the floor, slide your left arm underneath the right, bringing your left ear down to the floor. And this could feel like enough for you today. Or it's a gentle rolling open where you actually bring your right arm out and over to the side. You could use your left hand towards your right thigh, pressing that thigh down. And it's okay if this right shoulder doesn't touch the floor, but make sure it doesn't feel like it's straining. It's okay, you could always place a block or a bolster under your right thigh so you can get that right shoulder to touch the floor, if you prefer. This is actually a very deep twist through all the muscles along the spine, but also for those slightly more delicate muscles that surround the ribs. And so you may find it a little bit harder to breathe fully, but just notice those sensations as you breathe. Feel that sense of gratitude for everything you've accomplished this summer season and this harvest moon. And then when you're ready, bring your right palm, bring it back around so it's back underneath your right shoulder, and then slide your left arm from underneath your right. Make a little pillow with your hands and just rest here in that half frog pose just for a couple of breaths, just to neutralize the spine. And then bring your right leg back to reverse corpse pose and just rock your hips from side to side. I'll just turn so I can face you, but we're going to come into that same work on the other side. So starting with the passive half frog, left knee in line with your left hip, left ankle in line with your knee, forehead down to the floor, or maybe a little pillow or a block. And there's the option to stay here or to move into a gentle twist. Just bring your left ear down towards the hands and look towards the right. That's the first option. Otherwise, maybe you want to bring your left palm under your left shoulder. You could slide your right arm underneath and release your right ear down to the floor. You could stay with this. This is also a very nice twist.
Only if there's no low back pain, shoulder pain, you could from there begin to lift your left arm up and over and move into the reclined twist. As I said on the other side, you might even want to bring a block underneath that knee so you can rest it down. You could also press your right palm to your left thigh. And it's okay if that left shoulder doesn't touch the floor, just as long as it doesn't feel strained. Bring the awareness to the breath. Where within the body you feel the most sensation? Where around your heart space do you feel the most sensation? And when you're ready to come out, very gently, left palm back underneath your left shoulder. Slide your right arm from underneath. If you had a block, just release that to the side. And then we'll just release in a frog pose or a half frog pose for a couple more breaths. Notice how it feels with your spine after that twist. Maybe it's a little bit easier to breathe. Maybe your heart space feels a little bit more open. And bring your left leg back into reverse corpse pose. And just rock your hips from side to side. And then from here, bring your palms under your shoulders, lift up through tabletop and all the way back to child's pose. If you want a slightly more restorative child's pose, I might even encourage you to have your bolster between your thighs, releasing one ear down or your forehead down. And your shoulders are relaxed, so you feel the space on the back of the heart opening up. If you had one ear down to the bolster, you might want to switch sides. Bring yourself back through center and then all the way back up. And we're going to move into a supported fish pose. Now, important to know here, if you have sensitivity in your neck, your shoulders, you might just want to come into a supported bound angle pose, or even just a supported bridge pose with a block underneath your sit bones, underneath your sacrum as you lay down. For supported fish, if you only have a bolster, you might want to use that to recline onto. But if you have a bolster and blocks, you're going to use your blocks to support your head, to support your shoulders. So you're going to create a T shape, a capital T shape with your blocks. The first one will be going along the spine and the space between your scapula, and the second one will be supporting your head. Now, if you want it in a neutral position, you're going to bring it to the same height. If you want it in a slightly extended position, you're going to bring it to a lower height. And if you want it in a flexed position, you're going to bring that second block to the tallest setting so that you can create a little bit more flexion through the throat. I personally like it a little bit lower, but it's up to you. You may want your bolster, if you have a spare handy, underneath the backs of the knees to soften as you do this. And you're going to lean back, and as you come back, you're going to use your hands behind you to just gently balance that block between your scapula, and then you're going to reach your hands overhead to bring the second block underneath the crown of the head. And it does take a little bit of maneuvering to get comfortable, but then once you feel supported here, just relax your shoulders. Notice how it feels through the front of the throat. Really let your shoulders melt down away from the ears, creating more space around the front of the chest. And when you're ready, on an exhalation, gently press your forearms into the floor. Bring your chin towards your collarbone. Lift up just enough that you can release the blocks or the bolster perhaps from underneath you. And if you want to keep the bolster underneath the legs, absolutely, that can feel really nice. Keep it there as you lay back down into Savasana, releasing your arms alongside the body, palms of the hands open. And just notice your breathing, whether your breathing patterns are the same as the beginning of our practice or whether the breath feels slightly more open and around the heart space and around the lungs. And then let the awareness draw inwards away from the external body into the more subtle. As with this time of year, the harvest moon, it can be a wonderful time not just to celebrate the joys, the accomplishments, the wonderful abundance we have perhaps experienced over the last few months, but also to really start to embrace that change of stillness, to start to notice how it feels to connect slightly more deeply, slightly more intuitively. And some of us can really enjoy the stillness. We feel called to the cooler seasons, the autumn seasons, the witchy seasons, where we want to hold in that rest, that introspection. We also feel this sense of gratitude for everything that we have accomplished, for the energy that we have received during the warmer season. I would recommend maybe staying resting here for a few more minutes, or perhaps finishing with a full meditation or a journaling practice, and if possible perhaps bringing some awareness onto the sense of gratitude for everything that you've accomplished, not just in the last few weeks, but also maybe over the summer season and altogether. Maybe look back at some of your intentions that you set yourself and just notice how you spent the energy. And even if it didn't look exactly as you planned or exactly as you hoped, try to take the lessons from what we've learned and how we have spent our energy over the summer season and the spring season. So thank you all so much for joining me. I wish you all a wonderful harvest moon. Namaste.